Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello students, I welcome you back to the lecture series on women's writing, and today we are going to discuss this mother, daughter, wife and identity politics. There are three words that I have used here: mother, daughter and wife. I have left out a particular word, sister, because why I have left that word out we will discuss after some as we go through the lecture. So, when the identity of a woman comes into question, this has a specific meaning that that woman is, her identity is revolving around the male counterpart or male person in the family. Why is that, and what are the effects of that kind of association we will study in this lecture. First of all, let us try to understand what is identity. We have already discussed politics in one of the previous lectures, so you can go and refer to that. But what is identity? How can we understand the concept of identity in the frame of reference of women's studies? Identity, according to Merriam-Webster dictionary, is the distinguishing character or personality of an individual. What do we mean by distinguishing character or personality? This is a very common notion that if I behave in a certain way, if I talk to anybody in a certain way, those actions will be interpreted and read in a certain manner. I have also previously given this example that if I give water to somebody who is thirsty, that person without any formal communication will understand this as an act of kindness and will think that this person over here is very kind. So, the personality of that water giver over there appears to be very warm and kind and generous to this person who is very thirsty. So, this kind of association of our personal behavior and the interpretation that the world does about that constitutes our personality. And distinguishing character. So, there is some part of ourself which is completely different from that of the others, like our fingerprints. Only fingerprint is physical, and identity over here, actually in this context of women's studies, gender studies and women's writing, that kind of context, in that context it is a little bit different. Although in any identity card, first of all what you will be asked is your photograph, your facial recognition, your thumbprints, your all of your fingerprints, then your biometrics and your retina scan. All of these things will be done and archived like you do in your Aadhaar card. Your PAN card also has documents to it, your picture will be there, your school ID card will also have a photo and your signature. Now, all these things are supposed to be a part of your identity. Your signature can never be copied by any other person. Of course, there are other varieties of opinions regarding that, but your retina and your fingerprint, they are very unique to you. So, that is why we consider them as biometric scans. And your face is also very unique in a way that it can be used as an authenticator of your identity, and that is why it becomes a part of your identity card. So, these are the distinguishing characters you have, and when your identity is more than that, you are a person. In that context, when you think, then you will have to think a little bit deeper. In context of women's writing, Judith Keegan Gardner has written a wonderful paper on female identity and writing by women, published in 1981. He discusses about identity and mentions this before taking up the subject. Men who are sure they have them fear other men are losing theirs. Again, that concept of identity. Women with the authority of possession of identity urge other women to seek and find. So, here we will have to consider this fact that men who are very sure that this is my identity, this is a masculine identity, this is how a man should behave, this is how a man should talk, this is how a man should conduct his business, they think they are very sure of that kind of identity, and whenever they see another man not subscribing to that idea of identity, they become very cautious. They try to tell that person that you do not have your sense of identity, you must become a man, you must behave like a man. They not only prescribe, but they also humiliate a person who does not subscribe to the idea of being a man. And women who have the authority of the possession, now here is a very unique phrase, authority of the possession. Why are we not using something like that in case of men? We are not using something that in case of men in this sentence. Why is that? Because men have the authority of identity. They are Mr. this, Mr. XYZ. But when it comes to a woman, they must have the authority first to call themselves, I am Miss this. Why? Because generally if you are Miss this, it will always be followed by something called care of, or daughter of, or wife of, something. Whenever you write the address on a postcard or you enter the address in the shopping websites, sometimes you write, especially for women who is just a little bit previous generation, they will write Mrs. this, wife of this, or in other case if she is unmarried, daughter of this, and then the building's address, because that property belongs to the man, not to the woman. That woman is in care of that person, lives with that person, she does not have anything of her own. So, this kind of politics, this kind of manipulation of the society, the distribution of power, this thing needs quite a lot of study, and that is why we have something called identity politics, because if you do not own yourself, if you do not possess yourself, then whatever you write will not be given, you will not get the credit for that, because whatever you produce as literature, whatever you produce as writing will always be going back to your male counterpart. Successful women are male identified, that is what I was talking about. If certain person has, a certain woman has gained very much prominence, we always want to know who is her husband, who is her father, what did they do in order to make her such a person, what kind of masculine support did the woman get from the society. We become very much interested in these sort of details. But it is a failure for a woman to take her identity from a man. Why is Judith Keegan Gardner saying this particular statement? He is actually not saying this statement, he is manifesting the belief of the entire literature of women's studies, the entire body of women's movements, including thousands of kinds of feminism. All of those culminate into this particular statement, that is, it is a failure. Even if you succeed, you are the tradition, you are taking forward the tradition of women's success in the society. If you still say that this is not because of your own prowess, not because of your own perseverance, and because of some male people who are supporting you, then you are actually wronging the entire body of literature that has gone into giving you these kind of rights in the society. Now, women's identity, where originally we have talked about conduct books and we know what kind of conduct books were being written at that time, and you will be surprised that this, that is 2022, is also, we find many religious societies, many religious institutions which are small groups under the umbrella term of Hinduism, Islam, Christianity and Sikhism. They have small association and they have their own guidelines, they have their own books. They circulate it among their peers, and those books still do contain the conducts a woman must subscribe to, and the angel in the house. So, their identity are being shaped and guided by these conduct books. Initially, they tried to become self-help books, but self-help books became a different genre altogether and they stayed conduct books. And now, because of feminism and other movements related to gender equality, conduct books have fallen out of use, but they have initiated a trend of the angel in the house, which was very difficult for critics like Showalter and Virginia Woolf to overcome. They wanted to kill the angel in the house, also the binary of monster in the house, like we have seen in White Sargassy, written by Jean Rice. Identity restricted to the bodily function of reproduction. She is a woman. Her identity is that of a mother. She is going to reproduce and continue the family legacy. That is her identity. She is a breeding machine. Till 100 years back, this was more or less the view throughout the world, and only after the rise of the feminist movements, after many women came together from Europe, from America, even from India, and started speaking about their rights for abortion, did people start to believe that women may not want children. They may not want to go through the process of reproduction. The option, we are not going into the debate whether it is biologically right or wrong for the health of the women. We are just saying that since we have a mind, we have some mental faculty, we must be given, the women must be given the choice to choose whether they would like to reproduce at a particular point of time, or they are going to delegate it for, or they are going to postpone it maybe for some years, or they do not want child at all. We must never try to identify a woman by her capability of producing a child. That is why women who are infertile are not able to produce a child, are not accepted in the society. They are banished, they are said that you should not attend functions, they are considered as ill omens. Although nowadays we have the option for adoption, but this has only become a practice in the last 50 years. Before that, women used to be addressed using verbal abuses. That used to be the practice. This is something we have also studied while studying Marxism, that women are treated as possessions. They are not paid for doing their household jobs, their household chores. Everything is taken for granted, that once you marry a person, that person is supposed to give you all sorts of services in the form of taking care of your children, reproducing and keeping your lineage, and taking care of the old people in the house. Everything is taken for granted over there, and you become a possession, a commodity, something that the man can use. Women's body needs to be tagged, branded for the authenticity of the future generation. This we have studied when we were studying Simone de Beauvoir, that whenever we are looking at a person who is married, we claim them. Especially in Hindu culture, we have the use of the sindoor or vermilion to show that this person is married and she is the possession of some other person. I am giving this statement because it is a reality, and I do not think that an interpretation of these type of statements will hurt the religious sentiments. We can always engage with intellectual things without taking strong sides. This is a mere observation. You can observe. In case of the males, you will have the finger rings. For the women, they will have the finger rings, and also something which will be very prominent, which will be more prominent than a finger ring. So, that way the person must be tagged or branded, otherwise you will not, that person will not be accepted by the society if that person do not subscribe to this idea. Yes. Now, here we see there were two options for women: mother of, daughter of, wife of, and nun, priestess, devotee. Either you are a married person. Yes, now let me tell you why did I not mention the word sister, because sister is something which we do not use to give the identity of a woman. If the person is very prominent, if the male person is very prominent and they have a sister, and in certain contexts, that way we can think of it. But these three roles over here are sexually active roles for women, whereas sister can suggest any one of these. They can be a part of the mother, they can be a part of the daughter, they can be a part of the wife. So, we are not sure about the sexual activity of that person when we come to the word sister. Now, here is the other option for women when it comes to identity. If you are married, you become a you become a wife, you become a mother. If you are not married, if you do not have a family, if you are not the daughter of any particular person, if you are not the sister of any particular person, you must embrace religion. You must go forward and find your companion in the form of the God, in the form of the idols that are present there in the temples. That kind of idea society always had. That is why we have Mirabai. That is why we have the widows who live in Vrindavan. That is why all of the Christianity, throughout the Christianity, you will find that women who did not abide by the societal norms were sent to the church under the authority of Christianity. That you go and serve there, you serve the Lord, you serve Jesus, you do not come back to the society. This is a modern proverb that I have taken. Many newspaper articles also use this particular proverb. Women have jobs, not careers. So, I can have a job, a woman can have a job, but trying to build a career is a different thing. Growing in that particular job is a different thing. You cannot have a career because apart from that job, you will be entrusted with the reproductive functions. You will be entrusted with the caregiving functions in the family. You will also be entrusted with all the household chores. How will you find time to delve deep into the subject you are dealing with and become a master of that, gain some recognition out of that, if you are investing your entire time into the well-being of your family? These are some excerpts. I have taken the first two excerpts previously, so I will not discuss them, although you can just have a look at it. I was under the impression that I was my mother's daughter. This is, we are talking about Raj Sundari Devi, and as you know that she is one of the earliest Bangla autobiographers. She has written this particular line that she believed, because her father died at a very early age, she never saw her father and she thought that she is only her mother's daughter. But someday somebody said that this is the daughter of Padmalochan Roy, the name of the father, and she was very surprised, and that is the identity she has, although she does not remember her father. Next is, she has to be given to someone, that is why she is born a woman. These are some people were talking while she was going through the road. One day one person, two, three people came up and they started speaking that she has grown and she must be given away in marriage, and that is why she has been born a woman. She heard those words and she wrote it down in her autobiography, but she did not know what are the consequences or what are the deeper implications of those words. Now here is something different. I was allowed to visit my people only under certain conditions. This is her life after marriage. I was allowed to go only on special occasions, not otherwise. When my mother lay on her deathbed, she wanted very badly to see me. I tried my utmost but could not go. It is my misfortune, it is a matter of no ordinary regret. Why was I ever born a woman? Here you see, but could not go. Was anybody holding her behind? Was somebody catching her arm and telling her, no, you are not allowed to go over there? Why is she not able to go? Because of the societal restrictions, because of the restrictions of her in-laws, the rule of the family that you will not, because if you go, all the household work will be jeopardized. Everybody will fall short of one hand and you are pulling most of the weight of the household work. Next, one day my eldest son came in riding that horse. He brought the horse to the inner courtyard for me to see. I was inside the room and learned that the horse belonged to my husband. How can I come out before the horse? I wondered. He belongs to the master of the house, that is the husband. Suppose the horse looks at me, that would be most embarrassing. Now this is a very interesting note because she associates the status of that horse higher to herself. She does not even think that she deserves a look at the horse. She thinks that because that horse is associated to the master of the house, that she is not allowed, she cannot or will not be able to look eye to that horse, because that horse might think that it is against the rules of the society, you are breaking the tradition of coming out in front of somebody else, some other male figure. So this horse has more human value than she herself feels she has. So this is a very interesting note. I have discussed this poem before also, that when Emily Dickinson considers being a wife, she starts to say that she has the power, she will be able to become a complete woman, but those who are not married, they are not complete women, they will stay like that for the rest of their life and it is a pain. But then again we see that from the, I think earth feels so to folks in heaven. So in heaven are those who are married, and those people who are in the earth, they are just hoping that they would be married sometime. So this is a kind of power dynamics she is talking about, because the power dynamics changes when once you marry somebody. If you are a spinster and you are not being known to people by the identity of a male, then you have some kind of low status in the society, because that is what we discussed again and again beforehand, that women are intellectually or were at that point of time thought to be intellectually deficient, that they cannot produce an identity out of their own self. So this is something very saddening. This being comfort then, that other kind was pain, but why compare? I am wife, stop there. Now here is again a different set of ideas, that okay, once she is a wife, she has a personality and she belongs to this person Mr. X, and everybody accepts her as the wife of Mr. X and she has some status in the society, but she will only be a wife and that is the end of it. There will be no more growth of her soul, there will be no more growth of the identity. Stop there. This is another poem. It is a longish poem, so we will have to go through this a little faster. I Cannot Live With You by Emily Dickinson. So here Emily Dickinson is talking to her lover. Here the author is talking to her lover and having a discussion why she cannot live with him. I cannot live with you, it would be life, and life is over there behind the shelf. Of course, she is a writer, she would have a bookshelf, and whatever is behind the shelf she cannot see. So, whatever is right there behind that bookshelf is something which she cannot see and is inaccessible to her. So, the life the lover can give her is the actual life, and what she has, and life is over there behind the shelf. But her life at current situation, that is something which she cannot see. She doesn't know what her future is. The sexton keeps the key too. Now we know in the second stanza that it is not a bookshelf. It is the shelf of the grave, the churchyard where they keep their coffins. Now the imagery steeply shifts from life to death. So in this poem, death is a very big element, very predominating presence of death we find. And when you read the poem, you will see by the end of it that mostly the reason she is not willing to associate her identity with a person, that is because she is afraid that she will have to see that person live and die in front of her own eyes. Likewise, that person will also have to see her live and die in front of his eyes, and neither of the two is acceptable for her. So, this kind of identity politics which she is playing at this point of time is very different from what we have been reading, learning, watching so far. This is a different kind of politics. She is playing the politics of death. When it is death that do us part, before that we are not going to part, that was the marriage vow. Now, what we will have to look at is how the poem progresses. The sexton, that is the person who takes care of the graves and the graveyards, digs the ground to place the coffin, now keeps the key to putting up our life, his porcelain, like a cup. So, it is very easy for him to deal with death, but for us it is very difficult. He is dealing with death for very long time, but for us it will be a very difficult business. Discarded of the housewife, quaint or broke, a newer severs pleases, all old ones crack. I could not die with you, for one must wait to shut the other's gaze down. You could not, and could I stand by and see you freeze without my right of frost, death's privilege? Nor could I rise with you, because your face would put out Jesus, that new grace, glow pain and foreign on my homesick eye, except that you than he shone closer by. Here you is the, of course, lover, and he is here Jesus, because once you are dead, you will of course be passing on to heaven and you will be with Jesus. They would judge us. Now here they can be the people of the society. It is quite possible that she is referring to the people of the society. How? For you served heaven, you know, or ought to, I could not. You have accepted Christianity, you have looked into the words in the Bible and you have accepted them in your heart, but I could not accept Christianity. I do not believe in religion. This is a very dynamic statement she is making here. She is not writing those very words, but she is saying that you are a Catholic person and you are a believer, I am not a believer, and that will create a sort of distinction between our identities, because my identity is based on what things I believe in. Your identity is based on what things you are believing in, and clearly we are having a problem understanding each other at this position. Because you saturated sight and I had no more eyes. Your sight was completely saturated by the divine light. You let that light into your soul, but I did not even see those lights. I did not even looked at them. For sordid excellence as paradise. So paradise is as sordid as any other thing to me. And where you lost I would be, though my name rang loudest on the heavens' fame. Even if you are lost in faith, I will not be able to do that, even if the gods call out my name. And were you saved, and I condemned to be where you were not, that self were hell to me. Now here, because you have been accepted into heaven, you will go away, your soul will depart, but I will go to hell, I will remain alone forever. If I am going to remain alone forever, that self, within that particular self, if I am going to remain there, then what is the point of being together at all? Because your identity is different, mine is different. So we must meet apart, you there, I here. So our identities should be separate. You must be over there, I must be over here. With just the door ajar, we can always have a look at each other, we can always know each other, have the company of each other. That oceans are and prayer, and that wide sustenance despair. What we will be after all having is despair, because at that point of time we will not have we would not have been married to each other. This is clearly a refusal to a marriage proposal, and she is also giving her reasons. Her reasons are a little bit obsolete, we can say, but it is deeply philosophical, and that is why it is obsolete, because in practical times hardly any people think like this. But at that time, considering Emily Dickinson, she was the introvert of the highest order, and she had these kind of sensations and musings most of the time. Her poems are imbued with the theme of death. So whenever we try to analyze these poems, we will have to consider her words from the depths of philosophy. So finally she is saying despair, that we will have nothing else to do, look at each other and despair. So let us not go ahead on this track. Now when we have already discussed a writer like Emily Dickinson, it is now time to also think about what else there can be apart from despair. Till now we have discussed of despair and how the identity of one person related to another person, of a woman related to another man, becomes inevident in the society, inevitable in the society. So that thing generally leads to the despair that we have seen in Emily Dickinson's writing. In this particular author, that is Eunice D'Souza, she is an Indian author, a poet, a very radical feminist, I would say, but she has sort of gone beyond that kind of border. In this poem, she gives us an idea what despair or how despair can be overcome. In order to overcome the condition of despair in the modern world, you will have to gain strength from within yourself. You cannot expect the society, you cannot expect the patriarchal system, the rule of the father to give you a comfort zone where you can go out of the system of despair. Despair is something which the society has given to women, especially when it comes to identity. If you do not get married and have your identity associated with a man, then you must despair, because your identity does not create any social contribution. So Eunice D'Souza is a person who clearly declares that I am giving an advice, a piece of advice to women. This is something, why is it? Is it a man who is giving the advice? Of course we know that the author is a woman. She is writing about, it is a kind of confession that she is making for herself. Sometimes you will find it is quite an easy example that when a person is giving an advice to B and this advice is repeated, this is a common psychological fact that this person A is actually trying to tell these things to herself. B is just the bystander, is only standing there so that A does not look mad or crazy. So this is a very common psychological phenomena that happens when somebody is repeatedly saying something to you, or somebody is giving you a piece of advice, it is related to the real life experience, or it has something to do with comforting your own self. This is one way of looking at the poem. The other way is that it is a poem which gives advices to women from a vantage point. Vantage point means the person, whoever is giving this advice, she has already crossed the perils, the difficulties. She knows how to cross the difficulties. She has that kind of knowledge, and from that kind of knowledge base, she is giving this advice. Now let us read the poem line by line. It's a very short poem, therefore it will not take up much time. But understanding the poem will take a little bit of consideration from your part. Keep cats if you want to learn to cope with the otherness of lovers. Very interesting, the otherness of lovers. Okay, so the first thing is, it starts with a verb, keep cats. If you want to learn to cope with the otherness of lovers, the lovers have their self. They also have the other self, which is not completely a part of yourself. This other self is like their private life, their whatever is going on in their professional life. It is not related to yourself or the family life, that your future, your children. It has nothing to do with this. So the other self, the otherness of lovers, is the kind of attitude of a person when that person is not performing the behavior of a lover. It is like the social life, the professional life, all of these things becomes the otherness of lovers. We will also get more ideas as we go through the poem. Otherness is not always neglect. That is what we have discussed. If you are neglecting your duties, that is one thing, but if you are having a personal life, that is again completely different. You have the right to have a personal life. You have the right to be able to choose the food you want to eat. So that kind of thing, if you have, it is also a part of your identity. A woman who always looks towards the husband, okay, what food is he going to eat, and I'm going to base my preferences, all of my preferences are based on what my husband does or what my father does. That is, a terribly disempowered situation. I cannot make a decision for myself. This is the abyss of disempowerment. Cats return to their litter trays when they need to. So the cats, they have an obligation. They cannot go dumping their feces. They cannot answer the nature's call anywhere and everywhere. They have a special tray, a litter tray, where they have to come in order to answer their nature's call when they need to. Don't cuss. Cuss, this particular word, it means curse, out of the window at their enemies. They are not like that. They don't look at their enemies and start shouting. That stare of perpetual surprise in those great green eyes will teach you to die alone. This last sentence is very interesting. That stare of perpetual surprise. Whenever you look, why are we talking about perpetual surprise? Because it is a common knowledge that the attention span of a cat is very low. What do we mean by attention span? That the amount of attention it is giving to a particular object. If it is looking at a, let's say, mouse, and the mouse is running away every time, the cat will lose interest in the mouse. If it is looking at a small ball, if you take away the ball and do not give it to the cat will lose interest in very less amount of time. So every time it comes back, it is like a surprise to the cat. So the cat does not hold it dear to the heart that you have done this, you took away my ball, you took away the mouse. The cat does not bear any vengeance. It does not have that kind of memory. It is not bestowed with the power of memory, so that it can arrange the memories in a way and say that you have done this, therefore I will not listen to you any further. So they have every time you take up the topic, they will be surprised. In those great green eyes will teach you to die alone. Once you take life like that, life should always be eventful, always be surprising. You must never hold your memories like the cats. You must never hold your memories to the heart. Let your life be a surprise. Once you become open to more things in your life, then you will be very much happier and you will be able to die alone without expecting people to be around you. Expectation is what leads to what we previously discussed as despair. This is what expecting. I desire this person, I desire the lover, I desire this thing, everything. Once we do not start getting them, that same path leads to the path of despair. When you read the poem, this is a very interesting poem, and our life has been compared to that life of a cat. The cat is also like that. It does not have a very great attention span, no attention span, no memory. It has a very easy going life. Once you start keeping memories, once you start getting attached, once you start developing attachment to objects, attachment to people, attachment to situation, everything changes, everything leads to expectations, and we know where expectations lead to. So this poem, when you read, it is like something which is anti-Dickinsonian. This poem is a part where it is like an answer to what Dickinson had said. This particular author, she is denying the identity given by the men of the society. Women must come up with their own identities. Therefore, they will have the solace of dying alone. They will not have any problem of living alone. Every time the society gives us thousands of reasons why you shouldn't be alone, why you shouldn't be alone. But it does not tell us that even if you are alone, it is okay. It will always tell you that if you are alone, you will die old, you will have no help when you are old, nobody will give you any medicine, nobody will take you to the doctor. Therefore, you must have children, you must have male children, or you must have a male member of the family. All of these things have been prescribed by the society. But what Eunice D'Souza tells here, gives an advice to the women that keep cats. If you want to learn to cope with the otherness of lovers, if you want to do away with the expectation part, if you want to live your life without the expectation, cats return to their litter trays when they need to. Don't cuss out of the window at their enemies. Everything is very much well disciplined. Everything is under control. They have a routine. They have a system. So those things are very important. People, they are not predictable. Cats, they are very predictable. We can predict what kind of action they are going to do. So that way we will be able to take control of our lives. This is like a conversation. This poem and the poem before is like a conversation with each other. I ask you to read these two poems and try to understand what kind of politics of identity lies underneath, especially when you are a daughter, you are a mother, you are a sister. All of these facts join hands in creating the identity politics of the women. This is another longish poem by Sylvia Plath. We will read it very quickly. You do not do anymore. So, Daddy, you are not doing whatever you do. Any more black shoe in which I have lived like a foot for 30 years, poor and white, barely daring to breathe or achoo. This is the sound of the sneeze. Sylvia Plath is talking about her daddy, her father, whom she lost at the age of 8. And after she lost her father, there were many problems with her. She started descending into depression, and when once she has gone there, she started developing suicidal tendencies. And this poem was written right after her separation with her husband, Ted Hughes. So, we can associate a little bit that since she is not associated with her male counterpart anymore, she is reliving her memories with her father. Daddy, I have had to kill you. You died before I had time. I wanted to kill you. With my life, you must have been there through my life. But you died before I had time, before I could torture you to death at old age. You died before that. Marble heavy, a bag full of God, ghastly statue with one grey toe, big as a Frisco seal. So, there will be a lots of images as we go through the poem and head in the freakish Atlantic. These are all allusions to various mythological devices, and you can just go through them. Just a small research will give you the ideas of what the freakish Atlantic head refers to, Frisco seal refers to. These are all historical monuments and places where it pours bean green over blue in the waters of beautiful Nauset, used to pray to recover you, Act 2. Between the lines, she is using German terms because her father was German and her mother was Jew, and now we are going to witness the tension between the imageries, because German versus Jew has always been the Nazi kind of attitude, and the impression of the father on Sylvia Plath was that of a dictator. It is not the fact that her father was a dictator, but the memory of her father, the time she spent with her father, all those things, all those memories locked up in her head, that kind of acted as dictating all her actions throughout her life. In the German tongue, in the Polish town, craped flat by the roller of wars, but the name of the town is common. My Polack friend says there are a dozen or two, so I never could tell where you put your foot, your root. I never could talk to you, the tongue stuck in my jaw. I did not have communication with you. I was barely 8 when you died. I had so many things to tell you. What will that kind of regret go? Where will that kind of regret go? I had so much to tell you, and there was no time where I am going to keep all these memories. It stuck in the barbed wire snare. Ich, 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 ich. This means I in German. I could hardly speak. So, I am trying to say that perhaps I love you, Daddy, I miss you, Daddy, I wish you could come back, but only what I was able to say is ich, that is I. An engine, shuffling me off like a Jew to Dachau, Auschwitz-Belsen. These are the names of the concentration camps, as if somebody has rolled up my body and put me into the train to all those concentration camps, and I am moving on with the force of the train. My life is not anymore under my control. I began to talk like a Jew. I think I may well be a Jew. Now here she refers to her mother, who is a Jew. The snows of the Tyrol, the clear veer of Vienna are not very pure or true. With my gypsy ancestress and my weird luck and my tarot pack, I may be a bit of a Jew. She was always very keen to study tarot and the gypsy culture of the Jews. They were very much into tarot reading and everything. So, this is the gypsy ancestress, is the mother of Sylvia Plath. Have always been scared of you. I have always been scared of you with your Luftwaffe. It is a kind of an air weapon, your gobbledygoo, that is just a gibberish word, means whatever you had with you, and your neat moustache and your Aryan eye, bright blue. So you had these physical features, and I was always awed by those things. I was always scared of approaching you. I barely had the capacity in me to communicate whatever I felt. So that kind of frustration we find in the narrator's voice. Panzer man, oh you. Panzer is a kind of a tank. Not God but a swastika. Again the reference to the Nazis. So black no sky could squeak through, every woman adores a fascist, the boot in the face, the brute heart of a brute like you. So here we see Sylvia Plath is calling her father brute again and again, brute for having left her at a very young age. We find that the narrator is deeply, or the author here is deeply attached to the father figure over here. You stand at the blackboard, daddy. This is another small piece of memory she had with it, where the father went to Sylvia Plath's school. In the picture I have of you, a cleft in your chin instead of your foot, but no less a devil for that. No, not any less the black man who bit my pretty red heart in two. I was 10 when they buried you. So you went to the school and you look like the devil. That is how the author at this current age remembers her daddy, because that person has destroyed her life, destroyed the peace of her mind, has given her very sad memories to brood on for the rest of her life. That is why she is calling him a devil. I was 10 when they buried you. At 20 I tried to die. At 20 Sylvia Plath tried to commit suicide and get back to you, even when she is rejecting the authority of the father, rejecting her identification with the father, whatever she is saying, finally she is also accepting the fact that she wanted to go back to him. But let us consider that this is at the age of 20. I thought even the bones would do. At least my bones would go to the same earth where you are buried. But they pulled me out of the sack and they stuck me together with glue. I wanted to die, but instead of burying me in the sack, the doctors came, they helped me recover, and then I knew what to do. I made a model of you. I found a second person. I found another man, a man in black with a Mein Kampf look. Mein Kampf is the book written by Hitler. The name of the book, Mein Kampf, it's German, and the meaning of the word Mein Kampf is my life. So my life, written by Hitler, so a person who is as authoritative, as dictatorial as Hitler. And love of the rack and the screw, and I said I do, I got married to the person. So daddy, I am finally through. Now I am through with you. I will not remember you. I will not be torn apart by your memories. The black telephone's off at the root. The voice just can't worm through. If I've killed one man, I've killed two. Now here she talks about her problems in the marriage. The vampire who said he was you and drank my blood for a year. 7 years, if you want to know, daddy, you can lie back now. You must be very happy to know that this person drank my blood for 7 years, and that person said that he was the father figure, the missing father figure of the author. There's a stake in your fat black heart, and the villagers never liked you. They are dancing and stamping on you. They always knew it was you. Daddy, daddy, you bastard, I'm through. So now she is rejecting both the man that tried to replace the father and the father himself too. The Laugh of the Medusa excerpt. Once we have already gone through the poems by Dickinson and Plath, let us have a quick read of Laugh of the Medusa. Men have committed the greatest crime against women. Insidiously, violently, they have led them to hate women, to be their own enemies, to mobilize their immense strength against themselves, to be the executants of their virile needs. They have made for a woman an anti-narcissism, a narcissism which loves itself only to be loved for what women haven't got. They have constructed the infamous logic of anti-love. So, once you try to understand these lines, you will have to see that what men have done is that they have made women hate each other, and in hating them they are not only taking the entire cause of women's writing down, but also creating a sort of self-loathing inside women. They are disempowering each other. So, this is the problem that we must try to overcome at this current situation. Listen to a woman speak at a public gathering. She doesn't speak, she throws her trembling body forward. She lets go of herself, she flies. All of her passes into her voice, and it's with her body that she vitally supports the logic of her speech. If you ever see a woman who has not spoken ever in a public gathering, you will find the nervousness in her, the tension in her, the way her body shakes and the way she gulps, and everything will point towards the fact that she is not at all comfortable at the situation, and therefore she is not using words, she is using her body, and her entire movement is showing how she is now identifying herself without any male support, without being anybody else, but by the help of her words. And this is making her very nervous because women are not accustomed to do so. In a certain way, she inscribes what she is saying because she doesn't deny her drives, the intractable and impassioned part they have in speaking. Her speech, even when theoretical or political, is never simple or linear or objectified, generalized. She draws her story into his story, that is history. I have read it like that, but it is actually history. When she is speaking, when she is using words, these are not the words which make her identity as a part of the male society. Her words are her own. And you see a person speaking in the public place, that person embodies thousands of years of conditioning women to think that they do not have a voice. This is a very popular poet who passed away very recently, Indian poet, literary critic and novelist Eunice D'Souza. She has written all these poetry collections, and she used to be the head of Department of English at St. Xavier's College, Mumbai. She has a very beautiful poem called Advice to Women. Once you read this poem, you will understand how to become an individual self. We have been reading of struggling to become an individual self. Now we will understand how one person can be that self. Keep cats if you want to learn to cope with the otherness of lovers. Otherness is not always neglect. Cats return to their litter trays when they need to. Don't cuss out of the window at their enemies. That stare of perpetual surprise in those great green eyes will teach you to die alone, to embrace your identity, your individuality. Even if you have to die alone, you keep cats. Don't try to associate your identity with somebody else's. This is another poem, Bequest by Eunice D'Souza. Here the woman who has turned towards Catholicism, like I said, women were either married, unmarried or parts of the religion. In every Catholic home there is a picture of Christ holding his bleeding heart in his hand. I used to think, the only person with whom I have not exchanged confidences is my hairdresser. So I have taken into confidence all the people around me. My individuality has dissolved in it. Some recommend stern standards, others say float along. He says take it as it comes. Here he is Jesus. Meaning, of course, as he hands it out, he is handing out the heart, the bleeding heart, and you take it as it comes. I wish I could be a wise woman, smiling endlessly, vacuously like a plastic flower, saying, child, learn from me. So, I would be a model person who will also train other students, other women, other young learners how to gain individuality, how to live on your own and not meddle with the identity politics that has been prescribed on us. It is time to perform an act of charity to myself, bequeath the heart like a spare kidney, preferably to an enemy. Once you bequeath the heart to somebody else, you become heartless, and that way you remain detached from all these problems of identity. So, in order to gain identity, you must not give your heart out to everybody. So, thank you for listening to this lecture. I hope that you can go back and have a look at the major points in this section. We meet you in the next lecture. Thank you.